I'm Julie Zenner along with Dennis Anderson, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
Tonight, Governor Dayton signed a bill that will benefit over 1 million Minnesota taxpayers. The bill removes controversial business-to-business taxes and conforms state taxes with the federal tax code.
Enbridge Energy is looking to improve one oil pipeline and build another in the region. We'll take a look at those projects tonight.
And is winter ever going to end? Many parts of our region got dumped on again today. We'll get the spring outlook from the National Weather Service.
These topics and more next on Almanac North. Hello and welcome to Almanac North. Thanks for watching. Denny, it's good to be back after a couple of weeks off for the WDSE membership drive.
And the membership drive did well. People help so we can get the programs on the air that they want to watch.
That's right. Folks are always very generous, so thanks for calling if you called.
That's right.
And if you didn't, there's still time. And plenty to talk about, so let's get started.
All right, Julie, thank you very much and welcome everyone. Late today, the Minnesota Senate and House passed an omnibus tax bill and sent it on to the governor for his signature. It has been signed. The bill removes so-called business-to-business taxes and also conforms state tax law to federal law, which will help Minnesota taxpayers. The bill was first brought to the Senate floor Thursday after Governor Dayton berated DFL lawmakers for not moving faster. Joining us now, just back from the state capitol, is Senator Tom Bakk, a Democrat from Cook, who happens to be the Senate Majority Leader. And Senator, thank you very much for being here. What is in this bill for Minnesotans?
Well, there's about $508 million of direct relief to individual Minnesotans and to Minnesota businesses over the next year. And then in the next biennium, so the next 2 years after 2014, there's about $1 billion of tax relief in the next 2 years beyond that. So, and we were able to do this because a year ago we put a budget together based on forecasted revenue. The economy's been recovering pretty quickly in Minnesota. We have one of the fastest growing economies in the country. So we have got some surplus dollars, so we decided to provide some tax relief. There'll be some additional spending also.
Republicans wanted more of the surplus, though, returned to the taxpayer. Why wasn't it?
Well, we did some pretty significant things in the bill. We added $150 million to the state's budget reserve and put a mechanism in place to have that reserve grow as our economy grows. So we felt that a priority like that was more important for the long-term financial health of the state than purely to just return it all to the taxpayers. And then there'll be some additional money in the state bonding bill in the form of cash that people think of as surplus money to invest in transportation projects and other important priorities around the state on public infrastructure.
Speak a little bit about who specifically will reap the benefits of some of this tax relief that's coming their way.
Well, I got letters from the iron mining companies. There's a provision that we repealed where business-to-business transactions for repairs of equipment, and so that has been repealed. So businesses that contract with other businesses to do repair type work, I think in the case of the mining companies, they're going to save about $7 million a year, just them, in sales taxes. So all across Minnesota, businesses that do business with each other relative to services, those services are not going to be tax exempt.
And the warehousing
the warehousing tax, there was a warehousing tax going to go into place on April 1st, and that was repealed before it ever actually went in, but that was a sales tax on business-to-business warehousing.
What happens to taxpayers, Senator, who've already paid their taxes for the year? They've already filed, but they can't take advantage now of these of the benefits of this bill. Well, can they do that next year?
There are some really important federal conformity provisions in the bill. Things like a tuition credit for people going to college, education credits for K-12 expenses for teachers, a lot of different smaller stuff, and then some very specific things like if you've had a short sale on your home, that is now considered as income. So we waived that so people don't have to pay taxes on money they never really got, that they got forgiven. So there's a lot of things in there, but some of the other things in the bill that aren't conformity is, and the House passed this bill back in early March, and in the Senate we thought, we should do more than just what they passed us. So we did things like in the bill, like the working family credit that Minnesota families that make up to $40,000 a year can receive. We enhanced that by about 25%. So there's a lot of other things in the bill that working families are going to benefit from. And the Department of Revenue announced today, after we passed the bill, that most filers will not have to file an amended return. They're working on the software changes over the weekend and into early next week.
Okay.
They did advise people that if you're on the cusp of filing, it would be good to wait a few days into next week. But if you, three things will happen. You either will automatically get a check from the Department of Revenue if they can amend your return without you having to file an amended return, or you'll get a letter from them saying you need to file an amended return, you've got some additional tax savings coming. So
they will be notified.
They will be notified if it's advantageous for them to file an amended return, but many of them will just automatically receive an additional refund. And technology allows us to do that.
There's a little bit of a kerfuffle earlier this week with Governor Dayton suggesting that you had been stalling the tax bill to kind of hold out and see if you could get the new Senate office building moving forward. Coincidence that the bill moved ahead shortly after that?
Well, the governors have a real advantage over the legislature, and sometimes governors think that they can dictate to the legislature. And I think what we all need to remember is there's three branches of government. There's the judiciary, the executive branch with the governor, and then there's the legislative branch that's totally independent of the governor, and it's intended to be that way. And the advantage the governors have is they can kind of dictate. The legislature is different. I mean, before a leader like me can bring a bill to the floor, I have to make sure I have all my members there. Because Republicans were certainly going to offer amendments, and if I've got people out sick or gone for some reason, I just can't bring major bills to the floor, because when amendments come, you lose control as the majority party. So the governor had wanted the bill on Wednesday the 19th. I could not do it that way. I had caucus members who had other commitments. The bill likely would have been amended significantly. It could have totally fallen apart and would have never been signed today. So it's very easy for governors to kind of create arbitrary deadlines. But in the legislature, leaders have to be able to run the floor, and you have to have kind of all your players on the field. So he hadn't consulted with me about the arbitrary deadline of the 19th. I had told him earlier in the session over a month ago that I would do everything I could to get him a bill by the end of the month. That was the commitment I made to him, and I was pretty surprised after I told him that when he came out with the 19th, and I just couldn't get all the horses on the field to get it done by then. So we only, I would argue, we only missed the deadline by one day. We were ready to go on Thursday the 20th, but for some reason the Republicans decided that they wouldn't suspend the rules, so it took us one additional day to get it to them. But
now that the governor has signed the bill, what's the next big issue that has to be done this year?
Well, there are two other major things that happen this year. One is a supplemental budget. We're going to spend about $250 million of ongoing spending. And the biggest piece of that is going to go to residential group homes and nursing homes. We are going to raise the minimum wage this year, and the impact of that is it's going to have an impact on those kind of facilities that have low wages. And they're not like other businesses, because they just can't go raise prices or raise the revenue, because the state says what they can charge, even to private pay patients. So when we raise their costs, we have to do something on the revenue side for them. So that'll be the largest item in the ongoing spending. That's called our supplemental budget bill. It'll have about $250 million in it. And then there's about an $850 million bonding bill that will come forward, $845 to $850. We will use some of the surplus in that for cash to get the bonding bill a little bit higher. When you have some cash around, it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to borrow every dime. Use some cash. And I think most of the biggest piece of the cash, the biggest item in there, probably will be some additional spending on transportation infrastructure.
Okay. Tom, thank you very much. Senator Tom Bakk, just back from the state capitol.
Denny, I have to say hi. I sent a text message to both of my sons today, and I've got 3 grandchildren in this service area, Ben and Cooper and Cassidy.
Say hi to them.
And I'm hoping they watch tonight.
Okay, very good. Senate Majority Leader Tom Bakk, thank you very much.
our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
This Holstein auction is the first of its kind in Duluth. It took a year and a half of planning, but today Palucci Hall is packed with bidders from all over and cattle waiting for a new home. Elgindale Harmony will be the first Holstein on the auction block, but first she stops here, where groomer Robert Zurcher works his magic.
As you heat it, it makes the hair stand straight. So when the hair is standing straight, then you take the scissors or the small clippers and then clip it level so that it gives it a better appearance. Oh, I think it can make a difference of probably a couple $100 or even more depending upon the animal, on how well you do the job.
6,800 and a half, 6,800 and a half, over 6,700.
Elgindale Harmony sells for $6,700 to a North Dakota man who mailed in his bid. For Dave Thompson, it was $200 too much. Are you a little disappointed?
We didn't think she'd bring that much, but her other sister sold for $4,200, but the one before it sold for over $10,000. So, yes, we were hoping to have her for $65.
With photographer Chris Berg, Colleen Burns, KDLH News.
A big crowd gathered Thursday night at a public hearing regarding Enbridge Energy's plan to increase the capacity of its Alberta Clipper oil pipeline across northern Minnesota to its terminal in Superior. It's the latest Minnesota Public Utilities Commission hearing about this and other proposed Enbridge pipeline projects. The PUC is expected to rule sometime this summer on the need for the increased pipeline capacity. And joining us to explain the projects is Lorraine Little, Enbridge Energy's Senior Manager of Public Affairs. And Lorraine, thanks for braving the weather tonight to come in.
Thank you.
Tell us about the Alberta Clipper project first. This is an upgrade to an existing pipeline?
We built the Alberta Clipper line about 3 years ago and put it into service. So the project that we're proposing to do right now is an expansion of that existing pipeline, which is essentially adding horsepower at existing pumping stations so that we could get more capacity through the pipeline. So no new pipeline at all, just pump stations.
Lorraine, the mayors of both Superior and Duluth came out in favor. They're supporting the project. How important was that?
That was hugely important to us, and we so appreciated their support, and not only the support of both of the mayors, but we had the labor unions there as well, and we also had a great turnout from the business community too.
You bring up a good point. What does Enbridge contribute to the economy of this particular community, Duluth Superior, in, say, a year's time?
Well, right now we're at about an employee and contractor base of about 750 people between Duluth and Superior, and that's about a $62 million annual payroll. And not only that, the projects that we're talking about here tonight are a $2.75 billion investment in Minnesota. So it's a significant economic impact.
Yeah. Of course, anytime you're talking about oil and transporting it, there are people who raise some concerns about potential pipeline spills. Enbridge has had some major ruptures in the past. Are those concerns legitimate? As you know, you hear from people who really aren't convinced that all of the safety measures are in place.
Well, certainly safety is top on everyone's mind, including ours, and it's part of our culture. It's part of the way we do business, and we need to be a safe operator in order to, transport energy reliably and efficiently. And I'll give you an example of our safety record. Over the past 10 years, we've transported 13 billion barrels of oil with a 99.9993% rate of safety. But that's still not good enough. We're striving for 100% and zero incidents.
So how much of this country's oil then passes through Superior?
Well, Superior is a major hub for us and a hub for the United States. About 15% of the nation's crude oil imports come through the Superior terminal. The Enbridge lines that go into Superior transport about 2.5 million barrels per day. So it's a significant amount of oil.
Now, in addition to the upgrade to the existing line, you're also planning a line from North Dakota, the Sandpiper.
Right.
And we have a map there kind of showing where that would go, and there have been people who are concerned that would go through the headwaters area of the Mississippi. Talk about that that project and why it's needed?
Well, the Sandpiper project originates out in western North Dakota, out where the Bakk oil fields are, and you may have heard a bit about the oil boom in North Dakota. There's a huge amount of production going on, but not a lot of pipeline capacity to move it out to market. And it's a great grade of crude, so that refineries in the Midwest and beyond are looking to access that crude oil. So the purpose of that project is to move that North Dakota crude into Superior, and then once it gets to Superior, it can move out on different lines beyond that.
How does the company approach landowners to get access for the pipeline?
We talk to each individual landowner whose property that we cross with the pipeline. Our goal is to reach an amicable agreement and obtain an easement agreement from them. And so that process starts very early on in any project because we want to have that time to be able to work with those landowners.
Is this a difficult time to be trying to advance new pipeline projects? There's so much national debate over the Keystone project. Is that feeding into or maybe driving some resistance to the ones that you have planned?
Well, certainly there's a lot of attention to pipelines, and anytime there's an incident, that raises attention even further for the whole industry. And so, yeah, it absolutely makes lots of people come out and ask questions, but that's not a bad thing because, you know, our company is, we strive to be transparent, we strive to be part of the community, so we're okay with those questions, and we're okay to be part of that community dialogue.
We are now seeing a lot of oil from the Dakotas being shipped other places via rail. Can pipelines do it cheaper or not necessarily?
Well, pipelines are the safest way and most efficient way to transport large volumes of crude oil. You know, that's just what they're designed to do. They run 24/7. They don't need a lot of people power. They run underground, and so there's not it's not that same level of impact that rail has. And it is cheaper per barrel. So, you know, from a business perspective, pipelines would be the most efficient way to move that oil.
Where does the Twin Ports, or where do the Twin Ports fit into just the plans for your company?
Well, the Superior is the original home of the Lakehead Pipeline, and so we've had a presence there for 65 years. We've had pipelines through Minnesota for 65 years. So, and we have a great base of employees and workers here, and the intent is to keep that going, and you know, for the long haul. That's our goal, to be here.
Is the company engaging in those broader discussions about the need to kind of switch over from fossil fuels to cleaner, greener energy too, and looking at ways to move that forward? Sure,
yeah. Enbridge is investing in renewable energy. We have about $3 billion worth of projects and investments in the renewable energy, from solar to wind farms to geothermal, and we're looking for new investments. We recognize that that is the long-term future. You know, fossil fuels aren't going to be around forever, but renewable energy isn't at that point where you can just flip the switch and say, okay, we're going to go right over to renewables. It's not there yet, but that's the goal to get there.
Oil will be around for a while.
It will. That's just how we live our lives.
All right, Lorraine Little, thank you so much for coming in and sharing some information. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you.
If you made a list of most popular occupations so far this year, meteorologist likely would not rank too high. It's a classic shoot the messenger mentality, but it's not really their fault, right? After a fairly mild first day of spring, today's dumping of snow around the region has folks wondering if spring will ever arrive. Well, Christenson, warning coordination meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Duluth, bravely agreed to join us. And Carol, welcome back. You've been a regular around here this year.
I feel at home, that's for sure.
What's going on? I mean, yesterday we had such a beautiful first day of spring, and all of a sudden winter is back with a vengeance.
Typical springtime weather. It's teasing us where This is the transition season.
Yeah.
Where we'll get some really beautiful, and we'll all get the spring fever type days, and then, boom. Nope.
Yeah. Carol,
nope, not yet.
2 years ago, I had my dock and my boats in the water on the last day of March. We had like 70 degrees one day in March 2 years back.
I remember sunbathing that's when sunbathing was in, by the way, in March.
Yes.
And issuing severe thunderstorm warnings in early to mid-March. Not the past couple years.
Yeah. This is just the ebb and flow of weather.
Yeah, it keeps us on our toes,
It
doesn't
doesn't it?
Now, we've been complaining a little bit about the amount of snowfall that we have had so far this year, but if you look at last year and compare it, the worst could still be to come.
Yeah, remember last year, April?
Ouch.
There we have some comparisons.
We had 50 inches of snow last April.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. April's staring us in the face right now, so.
As we look at this graph, what was our snowiest winter? Do you any recall?
Snowiest winter was 96, 97. We had 130, almost 136 inches of snow.
Mm-hmm. What about this event that we're in the throes of right now? How much snow have we seen across the region in the past day or so? And is it going to stop now?
Here in Duluth, when I left work, we were at about 6 inches. But farther north, they're up to a foot.
Really? Wow. I was at the National Weather Service on Monday night, and one of the meteorologists said something like, we've had like 70 days this year of below zero weather. Is that a record?
I don't know about a record, but we have been this. It was the second coldest winter of all time.
And those of us who live here will attest to that.
It was very cold.
Yes.
And March isn't doing much better. We're almost 7 inches below normal for March. It's been very, very chilly.
So how have things been up at the Weather Service? You know, we kind of joked that, you know, this is not a very popular profession, but are things pretty crazy busy up there when events like this roll in?
It does get busy because, well, first of all, our forecasters were very intense on checking all the maps and trying to make a decision. How much is it going to snow?
Sure.
Do I need a warning? Do I need an advisory? And then once it starts snowing, we get all sorts of people calling in with their snowfall reports, and then we get reporters calling in, wanting interviews. So it does get pretty crazy.
Are we looking at any other major snowmaking event in the month of March, or can't you see out that far?
Well, we're going to see a possibility of more snow. How's that?
Oh.
I really put it out on the line, that one, didn't I?
Here's your groundhog question. When's spring coming?
Well, if you look at the longer term forecast, we're going to have a cool spring. Does that surprise you?
No,
it doesn't surprise me at all.
And then as we go into summertime, we're going to probably trend back to normal.
Yeah.
But I have really good news. We're looking at an El Nino starting to develop, which means for us, and El Nino is when the waters in the South Pacific near the equator warm much more than normal. And it changes the whole global weather patterns.
Okay.
And for us, it means
we're a benefactor.
Warmer than normal.
Ooh.
So if we can just hang in there.
Ooh, that wouldn't be bad.
When you said good news, I was hoping you were going to say that we were freezing out the army worms, but
wouldn't that be nice?
What has surprised me is the amount of open water as you go up the North Shore. But it's my understanding, the big lake is still like 90% frozen.
I'm not sure what it is now, but at its peak, it was almost 97%. But those warm days and those warm winds do quite a bit to that ice.
Has broken up some ice.
Any advice for people who just can't take it anymore?
My advice all the time has been try to get out.
Yeah.
Try to get out. Go for walks as much as you can. Try to get out into the outdoors and get rid of that cabin fever as much as you can.
And we do get cabin fever up here. You know, when you have 70 days below zero.
I mean, even me, who just loves snow, I'm getting tired of it because the snow that we have now, you can't snowshoe in it. You sink in it. It's not good snow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for coming and
welcome.
giving us a little glimmer of hope that summer is on its way. Appreciate it, Carol.
Always a pleasure. Thanks.
You're welcome.
It's time now for the week's business news from Business North. Adams Publishing Group of Minneapolis has acquired newspapers across the Iron Range and in northwestern Wisconsin as part of a larger purchase from American Consolidated Media. Adams is part of a diversified billion-dollar company that also has interests in banking, outdoor advertising, retail, broadcasting, and recreation. Minnesota native Stephen Adams is a key executive in the firm. The affected publications have experienced numerous ownership changes during the past 15 years.
6-year-old Duluth Superior magazine folded this week after distributing its March edition. Founder and CEO Marty Biscaglia said it was a sad day for her and the magazine's staff. The former Duluth News-Tribune president and publisher started the magazine in 2008. In 2012, she moved to Alaska to become vice president of advertising of the Anchorage Daily News. Biscaglia said she concluded the magazine could not succeed without receiving the attention that only a resident owner could provide.
A new company that helps Native American tribes plan and design buildings and communities will receive mentoring and support from a Minnesota architecture firm. The new company, First American Design Studio, will work with DSGW Architects, which has offices in Duluth, the Iron Range, and the Twin Cities. They will assist tribes nationwide planning for expansion, growth, and development. The firm is led by Mike Laverdure, an enrolled member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa, based in North Dakota. He has worked for DSGW since 2008. For more on these and other business stories, visit businessnorth.com.
If you have a comment on our show, call now, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org and visit the WDSE website for the latest program updates, news about the station, special events, and more. Denny, I'm crossing my fingers for a spring melt by this time next week.
I'm not so sure we're going to see that. Hey, we live here. This is what happens. Another snowfall, another year.
That's right, and a big shout out to the Duluth Police Department and to Dave's Towing for helping me out when I wound up in the ditch today.
Wow. All right.
For Denny and the crew here at Almanac North, I'm Julie Zenner. Have a great weekend.